Hello, I'm Crystal Petry, and right now you have elected the 47th President of the United States of America in Donald J. Trump. What happens now? Donald J. Trump is now our 47th president, and this will be his second term in office. As you remember, he went up against Joe Biden and lost that election and came back. Now the storyline is this would have been a historic election either way. If Kamala Harris would have won, obviously she would have been the first African-American woman in office. But since President-elect Donald J. Trump won, he is being called the comeback kid. The first time a president lost an election, came back and won the next time around. I am going to now bring on Winslow Jones. She is the president of the Young Atlanta Republicans to get her thoughts on this historic election. Good morning, Winslow. How are you? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Was it a late night for you as it was for me?
Yes. It was a late night. So, but I'm here.
Yes. Thank you so much happy for joining us. How much sleep are you working on?
Oh gosh, I got to bed around 1 a.m.
Wow.
So there was a huge election night watch party last night put on by the Georgia GOP at the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Buckhead. Mm-hmm. And it was massive amounts of people. So yeah, we had a great time as we saw the results come in as each of those states started going red. And then sure enough, Trump had over 270 electoral votes. So
right. So I would like to get, because on a podcast before you stated that you were voting for President-elect Donald Trump, you wanted him to win. What was your feelings, your emotions once he was called president? Once that came in and said Donald Trump is going to be the next president?
Emotions were relief. I have a nephew on the way, about to arrive in 2 weeks, and that's the first thing I thought of was this is going to be the next 4 years is going to pave the way for a better economy and a better financial future for not just us, but the young Americans coming into the world. So I'm looking forward to seeing interest rates drop with his economic policies, groceries, gas, all the weekly items that we purchase go down, and also more money saved from our paychecks.
Absolutely. We all want to see that come. Now, the storyline, one of the many storylines this morning is this is a historic election. Obviously, if Kamala Harris would have won, she would have been the first Black female to be president. With President-elect Donald Trump, he is the first president that lost and came back to win again. Yes. So now everyone is calling him the comeback kid. What are you thinking about that storyline?
It's interesting because there were so 4 years ago, I remember going to sleep and seeing that they were they're calling it for Biden, and thinking like, oh my gosh, like this, I'm a little bit afraid of what's going to happen in the years to come. So Trump obviously wanted to come back and win the presidency again, because then beyond 4 years from now, he'll be 82, which is like, I think, isn't that the age Biden is now? And he already said he was not going to run again if he loses this go round. So, and what's interesting is what we've seen is we've never seen at least I don't remember ever seeing a campaign like this. Like you had him, every time there was some negative comment from Biden, from Kamala, he took that and ran with it and actually Yeah, and actually made that a part of his campaign. We saw that with McDonald's. Like she lied and said she worked at McDonald's, trying to relate to working people, or people in the lower middle class. And there was no evidence that she actually worked at McDonald's. Well, he went and experienced what it was like to work at McDonald's. And,
I saw that.
and then when with the whole comment when Biden said that all Trump supporters are trash or garbage, and then he took that and got in a garbage truck to enter into a rally. It was just, you've never seen it. He took the negative comments or the lies from the other side and just completely ran with it and made it a part of his campaign. And the whole fact that there was 2 assassination attempts on his life, and we just never seen a campaign like this, and it really came back and helped him win. His whole approach, the Trump campaign's whole approach.
Yes, and that really leads into my next question, Winslow. When Donald Trump gave his victory speech, whether that was late last night or early this morning, depending on your time, one of the things that he said was this was a historic, one of the greatest political campaigns that he had ever seen. And it sounds like you agree to that.
Yes, I would say absolutely. It was almost like 4 years ago, he kind of played the defense in a sense. And there were a lot of people that were very tired of his rhetoric and tired of the controversial things that were said. But, it's interesting. The media tend to really blow up certain things he would say and take it out of context. And so I think that he was painted in a way. And listen, you can disagree with, many people disagree with maybe personal choices he's made in his life, his personal life. But when we're talking about leading a country, especially when we're facing Russia, facing China, facing other regimes that are really go against our Western values, so he was on the defense 4 years ago, and there was just so much spun about him. I think that led to Biden winning. And a lot of people were actually voting against him back then, but then he was able to turn back around and show a different part of himself. And I really think that the way the economy has gone, all in the world wars that we've seen, started during the Biden administration and all in the border crisis, those three areas of world politics and U.S. politics worked in his favor. And that's why I think he was able to come back, because he was saying, hey, look at what happened. These are just the facts. Look at what happened the past 4 years during this administration. And here's, look at how things were 4 years ago, despite, liking Trump or not liking Trump, who he is as a person. It's the running the country like a business that I think people started to really see this go around, that this is what we need. And we need someone who's going to be strong and stand up to communism, stand up to these other world powers and other world leaders, and know how to negotiate for peace.
Right.
Because that whole campaign slogan of peace through strength, I think that really resonated with a lot of people. So
President-elect Donald Trump secured over 70 million votes. And of course, the count is still coming in. And Vice President Kamala Harris secured over 65 million votes. Mm-hmm. And of course, the numbers are still being tallied. Did he overperform or did she underperform in this election?
So I think so it's interesting because he tends to, if you looked at the polls, like this go round and then, 4 years ago, but especially 8 years ago, he tended to underpoll. And he ended up performing better 8 years ago. Even though it's interesting because Hillary had won the popular vote, but he won the Electoral College 8 years ago. This go round, he definitely, I say overperformed. He definitely, he overperformed compared to 4 and 8 years ago. I mean, he won the popular vote 51%, I think, this go round, and she, and so so he overperformed in terms of his performance 4 years ago, especially. And then even 8 years ago. But I would say, I think Kamala is kind of both. I think she kind of underperformed in a sense, because if you looked at a lot of her interviews, she just could not directly answer a lot of questions that people that were in the middle weren't really sure who they were going to vote on all the undecided voters. She really did not knock it out of the park like she could have. I mean, I think if she had been honest, she could have gotten more swing voters had she been honest and said, hey, you know what? Here's the policies that we enacted during the Biden administration. Here's the outcomes, just being honest. Here's the outcomes that occurred. Here's what I would do different. But she still had to pledge allegiance to Biden, I think, and I guess she didn't want to throw him under the bus, but she was a part of a lot of those decisions that led to poor outcomes.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, Winslow, because she was asked directly several times, is there anything different you would do from President Joe Biden? And she would always say, no, I can't think of anything different that I would have done as president. Did that hurt her? Because me thinking, of course, there is no perfect person on this planet.
Yes.
So, which means there's no perfect president on this planet. There is nothing that you would do differently from President Joe Biden, even though he is your boss, and I'm air quoting that, even though he is your boss, there's absolutely nothing different you would have done. Like that's a real question.
Yes. And I think to me, it's almost like she didn't understand the voters that she needed to get, because those voters that weren't really pro-Trump and weren't pro her either, but had these questions of like, okay, let's be honest here about what did not work the past 4 years. If you cannot be honest about that, people don't trust you. And so she didn't understand, I think, the people that she needed to win and win over in her messaging. And so whether she was trying to pander to other demographics or a certain line of political thought, I think she wanted to kind of stay with the people that were on the far left and play to them. But she really needed to look in the middle here at the swing voters and what issues were important to them and how she could have been honest. Because I think had she appeared honest, not trying to hide or cover, then she probably could have got more of the popular vote, and who knows, maybe some of those swing states as well.
Let's look at some of the numbers here, Winslow. So the Republicans won the young male vote because they are hungry for a connection. I feel like they maybe feel left out and forgotten about when it comes to political and politics in general. And of course, Donald Trump received a lot of the young male vote. He does appear as an alpha male. Do you think that the Democratic Party is alienating the young male vote? Do you think the Republican Party is being more inclusive of them?
That's interesting. You put it that way. But yes, I mean, you look at, okay, so the Democratic Party has tended to say, okay, well, if you are not a white male, a male that's white, they're basically saying the white male has had all the advantages. This is the messaging from the Democrat Party. Has had all the advantages, in the world, and they're like on top of society. This hierarchy that they paint, and then you have women, and you have people of color, people of different races that aren't white. It's almost like we need to elevate those people, and so the white males, so you can kind of come, so we can all, and it's a weird kind of thought of like us not being equal under the law, but now we have all equal rights and equal opportunities. Like no one does not have their human rights here in America. So I don't see this whole cultural shift to saying we're just going to elevate people that are people of color, people that are women, or people that are in the LGBTQ plus whatever community. To me, that has said, okay, well, it doesn't mean that white males also can't contribute to society just as equally. It's in the whole attack on masculinity too. I mean, I think that there has on the left, especially, it's almost like they have painted this picture of there being this patriarchy, and yes, historically, when societies were not as civilized as ours, that we relied on strong men, and we still do in times of war in the military. Like, we need strong men,
Absolutely.
that are not just like physically strong, but like emotionally strong, mentally strong. And it's not that women can't be that either, but there has been like a degradation of the value of not just white men, but just men in general. And I think that absolutely the Republican Party, and that resonates. I think Trump took the Republican Party in a certain direction to say, hey, it's okay to like be a strong leader and to negotiate peace and to lift up males, because we need strong men in this country. We need strong men to face China, to face Russia, to face Iran, like all the civilizations that operate under a different form of government that are really counter to our Western values, and they really do hate us, and they want to bring America down. We need strong men to defend our society. And I just don't buy it anymore that, white males have oppressed everybody. There's people of all races and all colors and all genders that have helped us attain equal rights under the law. So
that's absolutely true.
So it's a good point you make. I think, yes, absolutely. Trump has resonated with men, young men, especially, because you see it too. It's like, people are waiting later in life to get married and to have children. And sometimes it doesn't even happen for a lot of people because of, and it's not to say that equality is a good thing. It's just, I do think that empowering men to be masculine, and masculine's not toxic.
It's not at all.
I mean, it's a good thing. It's the toxic masculinity. It's just this it's part of that ideology where somebody just put these two terms together that have nothing to do with each other. Like, masculinity is not toxic. It's actually a very good thing, and it creates it creates safety in our society to have masculine men. And if you have a macho guy, let's say a caricature of a macho guy who's a jerk to people, okay, that's one thing, but that doesn't mean masculinity is toxic.
Right.
Yes,
that's just him. That's just who he is.
That's just that individual person that may have emotionally immature behaviors, and not be super spiritually or emotionally mature. But I do think that, everyone has flaws, right? You have Trump as this person. He has a set of flaws. He has a set of attributes. And so I think that, despite, the things that he says that people don't like, and some of the stuff that he's done in his personal life, he's not squeaky clean. However, at the end of the day, like, he is a strong man that will, instead of cowering in fear after getting shot in the ear, he like stands up and pumps his fist. Those are the kind of men that stormed the beaches of Normandy during World War II. Right. So like, we need those men. I think that moment, that attempted assassin, that almost killed him. I mean, he actually, I think, helped Trump win in a sense, because you were able to see the Trump's strength in the face of death. So
let's talk about women a little bit here, Winslow. In this election, overwhelmingly white college educated women voted for Kamala Harris. In 2016, the college educated white women overwhelmingly voted for Trump. What happened? Where was the switch?
That's interesting. I honestly haven't given much thought to that. I mean, in terms of like compared to Hillary versus Trump, I mean, we were coming off the Obama era, and I think people were really looking for change from that. Even though, I mean, they were looking for change this go around too. I haven't really given a whole lot of thought. I mean, I think that white college educated women in general tend to lean more liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, like I said, the left wing has kind of taken charge with, or they've won the culture war. They've influenced not just the media, but also the college universities. More women graduate from college nowadays.
Yes.
So, and they tend to, I don't know if it's just kind of like a personal, that buying into like this narrative that, women were oppressed for so long. And so we have to, woman power rule society. Listen, I'm all about having strong women in leadership roles. Like we need that for sure. But I don't know if it just had had to do with just wanting, so Hillary lost the first go round, and just maybe a subset of women that really want to see the first female president in their lifetime. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like in their minds, it's maybe like a championship, winning a championship for women, getting a woman into the presidency. But, hey, if we want a first woman president, let's elect someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who actually has gone, she's served in the military. She's not afraid to go fight with her military brothers and sisters. And she understands the strength in negotiating peace, and the importance of negotiating peace. So we're not going to go into a nuclear war. And a woman like that who served our country and who's not afraid to go into battle.
Do you think, Winslow, that America is ready for a female president, or has the maybe the wrong women? What do you think?
I think I agree with the second thing, the latter thing you just said. So,
Okay.
like I said, if it was someone like Tulsi Gabbard, even Nikki Haley, I mean, she was a U.S. ambassador to the UN, right? So, she, I could see that either one of them becoming the first. I mean, I would like to see either one of them become the first woman president. Do I think America's ready for it? I would think yes, if it's someone who will be able to enact policies like those that I believe will be best for the country. And it's interesting. Tulsi Gabbard, I was listening to, I guess, one of her interviews. I can't remember where it was with, but she was talking about, hey, if Kamala Harris wins, she's going to, because she's a woman. I mean, women tend to feel like when they get in leadership roles, they have to exert strength, and she was afraid that she was going to put more of our military into war, and to send them into battle zones and to start war that's like not necessary, just because she wanted to exert strength. That's what Tulsi I was thinking Kamala Harris was going to do.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think it has to be the right female
Right.
that's going to continue to carry out, try to enact policies that will help this country still remain the free country that it is, and with the whole thought that with the freedom of opportunity that we have here, it's got to come with some responsibility. We can't just be continuing to plunge ourselves into debt, trillions and trillions of dollars of debt, just to give money out to people, just to pander to people. Economic policies, I can see maybe a center right female being the first female president one day. We'll see if it happens in my lifetime. I think it may, because we already have some pretty strong women leaders, in my opinion, that are have gotten very close. But yeah, I don't think people should just elect someone just because they're a woman or because of their race. I mean, yes, we do. America tends to have a fascination with the whole sensationalism behind the first Black president or the first woman president. And it's not to say that those aren't bad things. Those are good things. But I don't think we should just vote on someone just because of those reasons. Let's look at the outcome of policy. And that's what I say in all the interviews I've done is like, look at the outcome of policy and how that's helped empower communities of all races, in America. So.
Listen to these numbers, Winslow, and I want to get your opinion and your thoughts on that. 23% of Black men voted for Donald Trump.
Hmm.
45% of Latino men voted for Donald Trump, and 40% of Latino women voted for Donald Trump. What do these numbers say to you? Is this a new Republican Party? Because as you and I both know, in history past, the Republican Party was shown as a white male, white female party. Is that
Hmm.
still the case? Or are we looking at a new Republican Party that's changing right before our eyes?
I would say yes, we are. And Donald Trump has actually fueled that. I mean, he kind of, when he became president the first go round, he sort of, in a sense, sort of made it the Republican Party, I mean, he wanted to, quote unquote, drain the swamp of all the establishment people, whether Democrat or Republican, meaning let's bring in people that are not necessarily career politicians. Obviously, you need some level of experience to serve in those roles
Right.
of political experience, but it's more of like let's shake things up and actually have this party appeal to people of all colors and all socioeconomic backgrounds. It's not just, and here's how: lower taxes, a strong border is going to help all Americans. It's not just white people. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, we have you. I think let's see, is it was is it Black Americans make up 13% of the overall population?
I'd have to look at
Um,
those numbers and see.
I can't, but it's like, and of course, certain areas you're going to have, um, just with history, how history has gone. You're going to have certain areas, especially in the South, where you have a higher number of people of color. And so there's more white people, I guess, in America in general, but across, especially in the Midwestern states and things like that. But I do think that, yeah, the whole conservative movement was to appeal to people of all walks of life, and Trump led the charge with that, to say, he said before he was elected the first time, and he spoke to a room full of Black Americans and was like, just give me a chance. What do you have to lose, right? If when you have all the the increased crime in certain areas, certain communities, in really struggling economies, he came in and he gave more funding to the HBCUs. He opened up opportunity zones in these inner city communities that are have been historically, marginalized, underserved areas. And he demonstrated how these policies can help businesses thrive and say, hey, your only way out of this lower socioeconomic status is to it may not be in one generation, but if you live your life with these values and you work really hard and value education, then you're going to be able to rise up and overcome adversity, economic adversity, and then everyone's on the same playing field and with competition in the marketplace. I think that he helped facilitate the to people of all different walks of life, like, hey, these policies are actually going to help all of you, and here's how. And so I think that, the American media tends to be dominated by the other side in general. I mean, I think you kind of see a little bit of a shift away from the woke cancel culture. You see companies and corporations, they stop, pushing all the woke agenda. You see that happening now. But I think in general, he has demonstrated and is going to continue to demonstrate that the Republican Party is for everyone.
Mhm.
And it's you're empowered through that, not just from voting for people that are just going to hand you, like I said before, not in this interview, but another interview about our last podcast interview, is like, when the government promises you, like, I'm going to give you this, give you that, people tend to want to go for that, right? Because it's sort of the easy way. But Trump has, he's kind of led the charge with, like, being in business and having and being successful through your own hard work and your own perseverance is actually what empowers you. And this is how it's going to help everybody. in
One of the
all of it is smart.
things that our now president-elect Donald J. Trump, who will be our 47th president of the United States, one of the things that he said, Winslow, in his victory speech was, this is a historic election, which I agree with him on that. But one of the reasons it's historic is because for the first time in what I can remember, and even what I can find, the Republican Party received the majority of the middle class vote,
Mm-hmm.
and the Democratic Party received more of the upper class vote. It was a
Mm-hmm.
complete flip-flop.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on with the two parties in 2024?
Yeah. So back in the early like 90s, it was almost like, yes, you had this establishment Republican Party that was like you said, consisted mostly of white males and females. And they're, at the time, the Democratic Party was the party of freedom of speech. Like they were the party of the middle class, basically, with all the unions and everything. And I think that there was a movement towards the Democratic Party with the middle class back then, based on Reagan's presidency and everything, even though I think Reagan was a great president. But it was like a cultural thing too, that the middle class tended just to vote Democrat because it's just how the parties were swinging. I think now at this point in time, you had the left wing take over, like I said, the media, the universities. So a lot of educated people and all this in Hollywood, like, let's just not to mention all the celebrities that always endorsed Democrat candidates and try to push their agenda with their platform. Yes, you have the wealthy elites, whether they're in politics, whether they're, out in Hollywood, that I don't know. It's like they've gotten so out of touch with the average American.
Mm-hmm.
The average American can't relate to someone like Taylor Swift, who's a billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
The average American is just trying to make sure that they save enough money to be able to provide Christmas for their kids and put gas in the car, food on the table, make sure they're getting educated, they're clothed. That's the average American family now. And so what we've seen is, like, when people start to realize, like, oh, when I have more money in my pocket, I'm able to do more for my family unit and in my community.
Right.
And Republican policies have helped that. And so I think I might have answered most of your question. Yeah. So the shift, there's been a shift towards the middle class being like, actually, Republican politics or the Republican Party,
right,
is actually helping me grow economically. And we see the effects of government overreach and government making promises and giving people, my earnings, like they're the ones deciding that where my money goes, my tax, I'm the taxpayer. Why are they deciding where my money goes? Like all these social programs they start. I think people in the middle class especially start to wake up. It's like, I want my money to go where I want it to go. And obviously we don't, it's not that we need no government. Obviously we need, but limited government. And that's an American value. It's like no big government. We want small, limited government that's supposed to make sure things are running okay. We have a secure border. We have military infrastructure that we need to facilitate the economy. But to take, let's say 22 to 25% of my paycheck, I'm considered middle class. It's just my income alone. That's 25% of my earnings. Like, why? I don't want to be funding something that I don't believe in, I want to be putting my money, if I'm going to be a giver, right? Which I think all of us are called to contribute to charity just out of the goodness of our own hearts. But I would like to put my money towards something that I believe in, that it was going to help our community, not what they choose. So just to fuel their agenda. That makes sense.
You spoke about celebrity endorsements earlier,
Yeah.
Winslow. Vice President Kamala Harris, she had the endorsement, as you stated, of Taylor Swift, Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
President Trump had the endorsement of Elon Musk, UFC President Dana White. He also had the endorsement of Joe Rogan. Have politics become a place for celebrity voices and where people listen to celebrity voices when it comes to elected officials?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's interesting because you really wonder, does Taylor Swift even really believe that, does she really believe that the policies that under Biden and then under, what would be Kamala Harris, is that really, I mean, what does she have to gain? You kind of wonder from endorsing them when the average American has, less money in their pockets. Like the interest rates it's hard to buy a new home. The interest rates have skyrocketed. Like those things don't affect Taylor Swift, right? So, but she's also maybe, this is just an opinion, but she also may be just trying to appeal to a certain demographic, playing into a certain demographic that has culturally gone more left and gone more towards the Democratic Party. And so I don't know if that's, I don't really understand it. I understand why celebrities think that their opinions, when they can't even really relate to the average, I mean, they can say, okay, I support this candidate because here's how, but just to push it out on social media to try to influence voters. I mean, they do what they want, but I think people need to realize that, okay, what's going to affect you emotionally, whether is not going to affect Taylor Swift the same way, or emotionally, economically. I mean, and if you're struggling economically, then you will feel emotional. And so, and Taylor Swift doesn't have, she's been a very, it's America, like the opportunities in America that have helped these celebrities have amazing careers. It's the freedoms that we have here. And what they're not understanding is, like, you can't, they're not relating to the average American in terms of finances. So they need to be aware of that and try to actually educate themselves on what brings about American prosperity. So I don't think that, it's not that opinions don't matter of celebrities. It's just because obviously they have a large influence. And I don't really understand, why people listen to celebrities in general to begin with. But if there's someone like Joe Rogan, where you really enjoy his show, like his podcast, and he influences you. This is just one example, on a fundamental level, and say, what, I like the way this guy thinks. Then I can, I can understand, why they would follow someone like that. But to follow, Taylor Swift, I mean, she's an artist. I just think she needs to stay in her lane. Beyonce, I'm like, y'all can entertain, right? Y'all entertain. You have amazing talents that you've been able to fortunately share with the world. And I applaud success of celebrities. Like I think I don't, or a CEO that's a billionaire, like, or a millionaire. I'm happy for people that have been successful, because they really can't do it without the freedoms that we have. That was put forth in our Constitution. And through certain civil rights movements in the past, like that was bound to happen at some point. And now I'm glad that people are successful. They just need to realize that, okay, your economic situation is not the average American. So just take that into consideration, like when you're hearing celebrities endorse somebody.
Right. So Donald Trump has been elected the 47th president of the United States. My question now is, what's next? What happens now with him? What do you think will be the first thing that he focuses on when he is sworn in January of 2025?
What I'm hopeful for is he'll make peace negotiations with Vladimir Putin. I'm hoping he will do things to help protect Israel, our strongest ally in the Middle East, to protect Western values. I'm hoping he'll enact policy that will help with those things, and also economic policies to help drive down inflation and drive down the cost of gas, and start the border security as well. And yes, that we need immigration reform. I know that it's hard to come over here and become a citizen. There's not an easy path towards citizenship, and it's always been a contentious thing between Democrats and Republicans in terms of what's going to actually work with immigration reform. But we do need a secure border, because we can't just have millions and millions of people flooding the country, and that hurts us economically too. And yes, there are people that there are migrant workers that do create some level of backbone for the economics in our country, but we've got to have due process. We got to have a legal process that we can at least have bipartisan support, bills with bipartisan support to support a legal due process with having people come here. It's not that we don't want immigrants at all. We just want to make sure that people are being vetted, so we don't see this increase in crime that has occurred with illegal immigrants. And it's not, crime is not all from illegal immigrants. I just want to make that clear. You have American citizens that are committing lots of crimes as well in certain areas, but it's not just them. But we did see a lot of lawlessness with the open border policy that they had. So I'm hoping he will secure the border. I'm hoping that between the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch, that they can come to some kind of solution to have us still being a welcoming place for people to pursue opportunity, but to make sure that the people coming in here are being vetted and they're not actually coming not just from Latin America, but like from China and from Iran or from Afghanistan. It's like, why, you saw people from other countries just coming through our borders, and that's a national security issue. Go
ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
As we get ready to wrap up here, Winslow, I have a couple more questions for you. President Trump, of course, this is his second term. What, if anything, do you think he needs to change that he did in his first term?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, I do think that if he can try to enact more, because he's not necessarily the most conservative fiscal president we've had. So if he can try to just enact policies that are more fiscally conservative, and we had a great economy. We had unemployment was down in his first year. It was under 4%, and that's from the U.S. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. There were Democrats that will argue that point and say Biden had more unemployment, but actually did say after his first month or two, the unemployment rate was under 4%, and that was the first time it had been that low since Eisenhower. So I'm hoping that he can get a hold of just make sure keep the spending in check, right? Because he tends to be more of a spender than other Republican presidents in the past. So not only helping drive down inflation and reduce gas cost of oil and gas and lower interest rates on homes and things like that. I know that's going to happen, but I also want to make sure that he's going to be able to drive down the debt as well that we're in. So and make sure and I think too, he tended to be someone that, and he does fight the media, right? Like he stands up, he's not afraid to say what he wants to say, but just keeping in mind that, hey, let's try to maybe say things that will help us feel more unified as American people. He tends to be a little controversial in his rhetoric, and I'll be honest saying that, but hopefully we will see just through his behavior that he's a unifier, and also going to help bring about world peace, stop these wars, and conserve the spending.
And my final question for you, Winslow, and again, thank you so much for joining me on this live stream, this live podcast, where we're giving information about Donald Trump being elected as the 47th president, Kamala Harris losing this historic presidential election. What happens now in the country? What's next for the country and the citizens with the new president and Donald J. Trump?
Yeah. So, I think, like I said, I think he's going to he's going to close the border. I'm just going to make it more strict border policies. Obviously, it's going to have to go through, there's checks and balances, like Congress is going to have to approve it as well. But Yeah, and I think that he will enact policy that will help lower costs for Americans, put more money in our pockets, at least in the first year for sure. Hopefully, bring back some of the policies that he first enacted back in 2017, and we'll start to see the gas prices go down. Like we'll start to see the everyday, like I said before, just everyday costs of living go down, and then so people can actually buy homes and then or renovate their home and continue to grow their own wealth. And so that's what I think we're going to see in this first year is him try to help reverse some of the Biden administration policies that have affected us.
Again, thank you so much, Winslow, for joining me
me.
on this live stream of the Crystal Petry Podcast and talking about such a historic election. Please go and get you some rest now.
Thank you so much. Oh, well, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And to all of my listeners, to all of my viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Even though this live is over, you can still interact. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your comments. Let's continue this discussion on President Donald J. Trump being elected as the 47th president. What's next? What happens now? Thank you so much. And don't forget, subscribe to my channel right now.